there, I am remaking my video on curves because I got some comments that there were unappealing sounds in the background. This is a tutorial on how to make curves without pins and just flawlessly, at least for me, almost flawlessly. I was making this Persephone quilt, and as you can see, there are 24 of these little half moons, and I made them all, and they were just harder than you could. I was surprised at how hard it was to put it together. So here's a finished block, okay? And you can see that this is pretty good. It starts here and then, you know, goes all the way here and ends up just lines up perfectly, right? But when I made these 24, kind of batch process them, I learned in a class that you start on this end, you pin the heck out of it, at least, at the center and the quarter mark at a minimum, and then usually all the way in between, and you kind of go. And then when you got to the end, it was really like, bobbin chicken. This was like curved chicken. I never knew where it was going to end up. And as you can see, this did not end up well. But what I found was it didn't, I couldn't really use one technique because the stretch was so different in each fabric. This white Kona is very stable. This juicy juice on top was pretty flexible. I'm going to give you a little demo of how that is. Just a regular quilting cotton. This happens to be Harry Potter themed. And you can see this is the crosswise grain. Look how much that stretches. It almost feels like it has Lycra in it, like look at that. And then here is again, like a Kona. And this is the crosswise grain as well. And you can see it just, I don't know, you take my word for it. It just is not really moving that much. It's really, really stable. So when you try to put these curves together, you can't really know which way should be on top and where to, how much to stretch each one based on muscle memory from the previous one, because every combination is going to be different. Here are the two pattern pieces, and when you can see there's like a whole bunch of little pin marks, especially along this curve line. That did not work well. I would, as carefully as I would try to cut it, when I lifted this thing up, I'd have little divots in here, and I'd have to do it all over again. That was really, really wasteful of fabric. So the technique I devised was anywhere there's a straight edge like that, you will use your rotary cutter, okay, your rotary blade. And then anywhere there was a curve, you would pencil mark it, and then you would use your scissors. So I'm going to just go ahead and show you that boring part right now. Safety up. Okay, there goes that. Rotate it. Okay, there's that. This is where I'm using a blue pencil, and it shows it pretty well. And I'm just kind of like going along this edge, even overlapping a little bit on top of the paper, and just making a little mark along the outside edge. And then I'm removing this piece, and it's really clear for me. I'm just going to be able to use, by the way, I love these scissors, LDH scissors. I'm going to go ahead and cut on the inside edge of that line. Okay, so there's our piece. Okay, now comes the part of how do you put these two pieces together? And here's some combinations, okay? This happens to be pretty stable. This has best press on it. It is like stiff as a board. It's not really moving. This bias curve is really controlled by the best press. And this one is pretty soft, as you can see, and probably has more, and it has way more stretch there in the bias. So does this one. So, if I were to put this on, this is going to have more stretch. This is more stable. This has got more stable. This has got more stretch. And again, the way that I'm going to show you, it's not going to really matter. The other thing was I was told, like, well, what do you put on top, the convex or the concave? And I never could remember. But with this technique, I don't really matter. That doesn't really influence how I do this because it doesn't really matter. I'm going to show you why. Okay, so this is my vintage Bernina. And it's set up with this ideal seam gauge, and I have a different video on that. I went and found this at the fair, and it works so well. I can't imagine doing curves without it. Now, the reason why I'm using this machine is that the feed dogs, these two pieces right there, are very narrow. This is a 4mm machine, meaning the space between these two feed dogs is 4mm. I have a fancy new Bernina with 9mm dogs, and that means that the presser feet are wider, the dogs are wider, and I could not make a curve with it. I could not sew a good curve with it. So if you're having trouble, it may not be you, it may be your feed dogs. If you have access to a machine with smaller feed dogs, go ahead and try it on that machine. If you have a friend who has a machine with smaller feed dogs, like 5.5 or something like that, try making a curve with them, borrow their machine, and it may just be that one thing that's changes everything for you. All things being equal, I do kind of like this the round one on top, and I like this other one on the bottom. Usually the bigger side, you know, feed dogs are good for drawing in extra fabric. And what I do is I line up the top perfectly. See those edges? I'm just really looking at that, and I'm making my first inch look good. Maybe my first, I don't know, first half an inch look good, lined up wise. And then sink that, put my needle in, get started. I'm just gonna line it up. I'm looking about a half an inch in front of my presser foot. And I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of gently line those up together without stretching it, without pulling. And I'm only gonna go about a quarter of the project and stop, okay? There we go. And then I'm gonna flip it. So now I've got this the round side on the bottom, and I've got the convex on the top. And again, I'm only looking at making this first, I don't know, half an inch look good, because once this flips up, look how that's gonna be perfect. See, can you see that? So that's what I'm trying to do, is make those ends match up. And then again, just gently, lining this up, looking about half an inch in front. And then do about maybe a couple inches worth of sewing. Okay, and then I'm gonna remove this. And then at this point, I've got this end sewn for a couple inches, and I've got this end, and I've got this big kind of gapey middle part, right? And so far you've seen I don't have any pins. Now at this point, I'm gonna fold it in half and find the center. I'm just finger pressing it to kind of get a little bit of a crease there. And then I'm gonna open it up and hold it. And okay, I lied. I'm gonna use one pin right there in that crease. And I'm going to end it right there so I can sew over it, because I'm one of those people that sews over pins. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of assess. I'm gonna say, which side looks gapier to me? Which side looks potentially bigger? And I don't know. This one's lining up so well, it's hard to say. But let's say that this one just felt like, let's say this was a little gapier, then I would probably put that one feed dog down, because feed dogs are kind of designed to gently move the fabric. So it will help you ease in the fabric. Easing in the fabric is kind of making two slightly uneven lengths match up. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of slightly overlap there, my other stitch. And I'm gonna just kind of press this in, hold this in with my fingers. I can see, actually this just, sorry, I'm not giving you a very good example because this is just lining up really well. Anyway, but I'm gonna do it again and we'll see. And I'm sewing along my scant 1/4 inch. I'm just kind of smushing it down to make sure that it really is smooth right before it gets sewn. Okay, and then now I'm gonna pick this up, and I'm just kind of, again, aligning the edges, smushing where necessary. Here we go. And this one, you know, this is where there's a little tiny bit of, I need to stretch the top just the barest amount to meet the length of the back end. And I'm overlapping slightly. I'm not back stitching or anything. Okay. go. And that looks really good. I'm going to take out that one pin, and then I'm going to go ahead and press this and show you how it looks. Okay, iron's ready. So let's see, how do I usually do this? Oh, I think I usually like to press it out like that, kind of out, away from the circle. So I'm doing just the back here a little bit. And, you know, there's all kinds of people who are like, just lay it down and press it, you know, don't like smush it out. But I'm kind of a smusher, and as you can see, I'm a person that also uses steam. I have light steam on here. You do you. And I'm not really too worried about those, you know, the effects of distortion or whatever. It seems to work for me. And there you can see it's just a perfect curve, because look, because we really focused on these ends, this is lining up perfectly, giving you a really nice straight line. This other end, no curve chicken. You know that the ends are going to work out perfectly, and any of that extra ease is just placed evenly throughout the curve where it belongs. And it doesn't matter if this is the loose gapey fabric and this is the stable one, or this is the stable one and this is the gapier, looser fabric, because you're going to be easing it in the center, just letting those feed dogs help you along. So anyway, that's my technique. If you found that traditional techniques work well for you, you keep doing that. But if you have found, like me, that you're just kind of ending up with a little bit of overhang, or it's short and you just say, oh, I'm going to just cut that off, which then distorts your grain in a way, try this method.